Now Marx. Where does Marx fit into all of this? Marx enters this debate. He's born into it, and it's part of his life. He loves the French Revolution. He loved those slogans, liberty, equality, fraternity. He wrote them as a young man. He made poetry and all that was his, as wasn't true for many Europeans at the time. But he was a very reflective fellow, majored in philosophy. Those kinds of people tend to ask good questions. And he asked himself the following good question, which I guess has occurred to many of you as well. Human beings have been striving for a very long time to have equality and democracy, whatever the words were, to share the wealth equally. Not that everybody gets the exact same dollar amount. You know what I mean. Some will get more, some will get less, for 100 different reasons that the community will discuss and agree on. But we don't create billionaires and poverty. We don't do that. We just don't. Equality. That's why every movement of social revolution or social evolution worth remembering puts the word equality up high on its banner and puts the word democracy. Equal sharing of wealth and income, equal sharing of power. That's been a dream and a goal. So Marx, the philosopher, says to himself, loads of people have made this point. Loads of people have struggled and died to get this equality. And we've made progress. We don't allow some people to be the slaves of other people. We don't allow some people to be landlords and other people have nothing. We've made some strides. But have we achieved equality of wealth and income and equality of power? No. And so Marx says, I have to ask the question, why not? Why were all these efforts by all these people costing so many lives in so many ways? Why didn't they work? And the answer Marx gives is, I'm going to figure that out, and that's going to be my contribution. I'm not going to do what everybody else did because it didn't work. I'm going to try to figure out why we haven't been able to get the equalization of wealth and power that we have as a species struggled for thousands of years. And he came up with his answer. He said, in the past, people have tried to overcome the gaps in wealth and income by squashing them together with a law or a tax or a rule. And they've tried to do something about unequal power by a law or a tax or a rule. It didn't work. They either couldn't get the rules passed, or they got them passed and it didn't have the result they wanted, or they got the result they wanted, but the result didn't endure. For one reason or another, it didn't work. And Marx said there's a reason for it. I figured it out. We never paid attention to something that shapes the distribution of wealth and power. And because we didn't, all of our efforts to make equal distributions came to nothing. The thing that shapes wealth and power fundamentally is how we as a community produce the goods and services that we depend on. Other people hadn't seen that. He said that's where we have to look. We have to look at how we organize production. If we organize production such that a few people are in a special position of power and control, we can kiss the effort to get equality goodbye. We're not going to get it. Even if we declare everybody equal, this production system will undo that in its normal way of functioning. You will not get equal distributions of power, i.e. democracy, or the equalization of wealth and income unless you produce those on the foundation of a radically altered production system, by which he meant, because he spelled it out at least loosely, what we would nowadays call worker co-ops, for lack of a better term.
That was never his position.
Let me just finish the argument. The associated workers, which is the phrase he used and which is the phrase he described, just like his term of what he called primitive communism, was an understanding that there's something about organizing production so that all the workers together make the decisions, what we're going to produce, how we're going to produce, where we're going to produce, and what we do with the profits that our collective labor helped to produce. To democratize that process, to create a production system in which we share the decision-making, will secure that we don't divide the outputs so that one person gets everything and the rest have nothing, and will cultivate in the people, in this activity which is where they spend most of their lives, 5 out of 7 days, 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, how you live your life at work is more about shaping the rest of your life than anything else. That has to be the foundation. And so he set himself the critique of capitalism in a particular way. The point was to show, that's what Capital as a book does, the point was to show that when you overthrow the slave master, and when you overthrow the lord and the serf, but you substitute employer-employee, you have left in place an unequal production system. Capitalism, therefore, isn't the vehicle, the means to achieve liberty, equality, and fraternity. Capitalism is the obstacle. Capitalism is a way of organizing production that precludes the effort to equalize distributions of wealth and income or distributions of power. In 1960, Michael Harrington writes a book, The Other America, famous book in which a whole generation of Americans discover that there's a lot of poor people in America, a lot of them, and they're all over the place. And people were shocked. Here we are, half a century later, and Barbara Ehrenreich or a dozen others will write us and point out, if we need it again, that we've had half a century of thinking we were able to solve that problem, but we haven't. And that's not because good people didn't try this rule, that regulation, this law, this plan. But if you don't transform the production process, if you don't analyze how some people produce surplus for other people who use it to maintain themselves in a dominant position, which is what capital does, and which then leads to the conclusion, that's what has to be, that's what Marxism contributed. The transformation of the system of production as a necessary component to any project for equality and democracy. That if you let me finish. This is not a dialogue. This is a presentation, and you can wait like everybody else. Okay. Yes, we can all have our difference of opinion, but let me finish the point. The reason you focus on production is precisely in order to bring that in to the conversation, to make sure that the projects from now on, the projects coming after Marx, don't make the mistake that the projects before Marx made. That's his contribution. It's not, you don't pay attention to Marx because he is some guru who has figured everything out or that everything he says is correct. That's all childish. We don't need that, and Lord knows we don't want to go there. But not to figure out what he has contributed is the equivalent of thinking that the only way to start a fire is by rubbing the sticks together. We have figured things out. Beyond that, we don't need to rely on the sticks. And the reason Marxism is important is because it focuses us, the way no theorist had done before, on the specific way in which the organization of production under capitalism operates as the obstacle to the project of equality and democracy that so many people over so many generations has struggled for.